Yes.
All right.
No music. No.
that was the wrong pitch. Try again.
Oh,
That was pretty close.
that was pretty impressive.
Okay.
We're not going to open it up with the song. Don't you always open up your podcast with the tune?
Well, do you have another song to
No,
open?
I'm
so I
not.
can play
I'm
this
done.
song?
My creativity is tapped out.
No, we kind of go back and forth. So when the show first started many moons ago, we had that intro song, and that was how we kicked it off. Then we lost the intro song for some amount of time, so we had to do other things. So people improvised, and then we got it gone, and then the intro song came back, and now we don't know what to do because now we have
We're just confused.
now
Right.
We
That's
just
okay.
do whatever we want to do.
You're improvising,
Yep.
pivoting.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we have your voice impressions too to kick things off. Like I don't know where this episode will end up
It's
starting.
going to be good.
Yeah.
Where are we going, Bryce?
Well, I love the energy. I don't want to bring you guys down too much.
I wanna hear it.
Let's get
gonna
super
show you
serious.
something.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Okay. Did you guys ever check out BuildBetter AI after I told you about it?
They did.
Very briefly.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You guys didn't give it any time, any real time, and I can tell. So I'm going to introduce it, and then I want to hear what you guys don't like about it and
Okay.
beat it up.
Okay.
But BuildBetter AI, so this tool is a place where you can upload all of your recordings, call summaries, any documents, any stakeholder interviews, anything related to building your product, building your company. You can dump it in there, and then you can ask the chat different questions, or it creates summaries of it. It does a bunch of different features to make you a better product manager or market validator, whatever you want to call it. And I've been using it a lot on a recent project, and I love it. And every time I bring it up, you guys don't even react to it. And so I want to find out
Yeah, let's
why
hear it. Let's
you
hear it.
guys don't like it, what your issue is with it.
Well, I haven't used it, to be fair, so I can't really say that I'm not responding because I had a bad experience. But
Okay.
I do have a couple questions that come to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a little bit about the space that you're using it for, the context, but would it apply to? Oh, I don't know. I mean, let me phrase this maybe differently or ask this differently. Would it excel at certain kinds of business domains better than others? Like if I was a medical person and I want to put medical documents in, would it still have the same efficacy? Or if I wanted to do something, pinball information.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I used it for a highly technical domain. It's in safety critical engineering space. They do test engineering, and they're trying to make a product in that space. And in the space, they're making a product. And this application did a great job of picking it up. The BuildBetter doesn't enrich it with a bunch of like industry data or anything like that, but it is taking what was said and then kind of correlating it all. And I've uploaded, 10 hours worth of customer interviews, or maybe not 10 hours, 6 hours of customer interviews, stakeholder interviews. So we have internal conversations as well. So it's like the team that is creating it, they're our client. I interviewed them, and I've got that. And then we also interview potential end users of the product and put all that stuff in there. So it's all in there, and labeled is great.
So I can tell you, I used this months ago for a cumulative total of 15 minutes. When I first started using it, I'll give you my initial thoughts. It felt very early when I was using it. Like it was like very unpolished, very not finished. And it felt also very limiting because it only did a couple things really well, which is like I needed a lot more than what it offered. And it looks like, just by looking at the website, it looks like there's more stuff been added.
It looks a little like Project X, like what that was intended to be.
Yeah, what we're talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
doing it.
So I want to talk about our project in just a couple of minutes too. So this works really well. It has evolved a lot.
Yes.
And so I took a hiatus from it for 2 months.
Yes.
And I came back to it, and it's just way better. One of the things they added that was super helpful is this concept of workspaces. So I can actually carve out different spots for each of our clients.
That's key.
Because I don't want all this the context getting overwritten or whatever, getting convoluted. You also it has custom context. I don't know if it's going to show it somewhere on here, but you can add your own custom context about your business if you want to enrich it, right? And say what
So
your
in
goals
theory,
are.
you could combine these workspaces all into one workspace, get a sense of like what your company, rather than for a particular client,
Yeah.
how it's operating, and if the message getting across or what have you.
Yeah.
Is what's the underlying AI technology that is it use ChatGPT or does it use your? Don't we know? Maybe it doesn't say.
I don't know. They have not disclosed it. It might be open AI that they're using. Not totally sure. But it does work well. The transcriptions are great.
Nice.
It does work well. But there's still some things not there, which is why I think I'm still interested in us building our own product. But for us as an agency, I think that there are some things that this can't do well.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to you about this a little bit, Josh, and I want to get your take on this, Thad. But like I want to have knowledge about our individual projects, but then also how are we doing as a company across them all, right? Like one of the things we talk about a lot with our clients is the rate of learning. Run an experiment and let's see what we learned.
Yes.
And you can use this tool kind of to do that and document your learnings. I think it could be better. But then us as an organization, what are we learning? Like, customer interview should be this long, or should ask these questions, or you should do this, then that. Like, so that type of stuff. So
What I'm curious about. So some of the learnings that I've learned through building the AI lab we have are related to. I'm curious, through context length, right? Is like the AI only has a certain amount of context it can remember. So it's what I'm curious about is how.
For a particular conversation.
For a conversation, yeah. Because if you start talking about, well, I want to know all the conversations we've ever had, and like then you're starting to talk about extreme amounts of context that the AI has to handle. And because I think ChatGPT has a context limit as well, and I can't remember how long that context is, but it's those are some challenges I know from a technical perspective people have to work through. But
the context limit is huge. That's what's stopping me, because I can do one transcript for something, it's fine. But then as soon as you try to correlate 10, 20, 30, if you look at like, how am I going to live with this tool for the next year of my life?
Yes.
That's where AI tools are breaking down for me right now.
Well, and I think, in my opinion, until they actually solve this problem through training, you're always going to run into that that context size problem.
Wait a minute.
Because
I got a solution.
Okay, but let me finish my thought.
That talk.
Right, but it's like the context, you haven't, in these models as it stands today, even with ChatGPT or any of these others where you're uploading your documents, you're not training the model. The model, that's not incorporated into the large language model. It's having to look at it and read it, and therefore then you have those limitations in context.
Yes.
And they get really bad, like when you do the local ones. It's like, I can do 4 samples of 128 characters each.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't give me any insight into my learning inventory.
That's right.
But you were going to say,
there's 2 developments that are
Hey,
new.
guess what, Josh? We can just edit out Thad's part.
Edit him out completely.
Why am I even here?
There's two new developments with and I think Microsoft. I'm pretty sure Microsoft came up with one of them, and it's context compression, which is really interesting. So what it does is there's a context compression technology that takes you and I, like all of us, would be typing to the model and it'd be responding, right? But what it does is it creates. It's really weird. It shrinks down. It's almost as if you gave a 2-page paper to an editor and you're like, make this a paragraph. And it can shrink the context down. But sometimes when you read that, the way it does it for the AI model, it doesn't even seem human legible. It's almost like, you've seen those.
It's been tokenized.
Yeah, it's been kind of tokenized, but it's still words. So when you look at it, it's almost as if, how if letters are put in different order, you can still make it out. Yeah. It's kind of like that. And so I'll have to find the link, but that's one new technology. The other one is
It's a word cloud.
It's basically like a word cloud. Yeah, the other one that it's more interesting that really increases, that just compresses. This one increases it is with Uba Booga, like we were talking about with creating our own AI lab. They added an add-on that's a vector database, which is really interesting. So it leverages a vector database to store context, which is infinite context.
It's sort of a very rudimentary neural net. Then.
It's a rudimentary neural
they're
net.
like trying to get in the very basics
Yes.
of that, so you don't have to train the model.
That's right.
I would guess that in the next 5 years or even less,
It's going to change.
You're going to be able to train your model and have that data go in. But it's a funny thing though, because the data that you have, like in our company in City, we don't have gigs and gigs of data to really properly train a model. Like we couldn't take the very small sample that we have comparatively, train over top, say Orca, and get anything out of it. It would be like putting a pebble in a pond. It would just get lost in the inferences. So that's why doing this context stuff is important, because you're taking this very sophisticated model and you're analyzing a very small bit of data. But comparatively, that small bit of data is still quite a bit, so that it can't remember everything.
That is great, Thad, because I wanted to ask you guys about this. It's a lot to read, so I'll give you a moment and kind of describe it. But this person was talking about how they built an AI-powered app, it says for career exploration. They were getting up to $100 a day that they were spending on GPT-4 costs. So this was the path that they took in order to migrate to a different model. So he said, start with the most powerful model for your app's use case. For 95% of companies, this is GPT-4. Don't use Turbo. Store your AI requests and responses so they can be easily exported. I personally use Helicone AI for this and love it. Easily swap in with OpenAI APIs. Once you've collected around 100 to 500 request and response pairs, export them. With your clean data set, use a hosted OSS AI or open source AI like Together or Anyscale to fine-tune Mixtrail, and try to fine-tune some others. Swap out GPT-4 with your fine-tuned model. So, this context or fine-tuning, not training your own model completely, but fine-tuning and just taking this path to get off of OpenAI.
Thad and I used Anyscale as one of the ways we were testing some of this stuff. So that seems the thing that's interesting about this. There's some information in here that I didn't know. I don't know if you saw that, Thad, too. Like I didn't know there were things that you could store AI requests and responses, like Helicone AI. That's new to me. That's actually pretty neat. Like the way they're thinking about that. I feel like it's so rapidly changing that it's like someone's like, use such and such AI, and you're like, developed yesterday. You're like, okay,
right.
Like this is what we do.
That's why I can't imagine. There's people putting out like master classes right now and all this educational content around how to use AI, and it's like immediately outdated.
Immediately.
Right.
So that's why I'm only turning to X and Twitter now because that's where people are posting what they did that day.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's all I trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm going to have to check out Helicone. Yeah, because that actually sounds like a really interesting way of doing it.
Well, so I'm curious about it for our application because we get into similar conversations over and over again. Being an agency providing a specific service, you were just going to ask the same questions, or the client's going to ask the same question to give the same answer. So I think about that. It's just like, I don't want to train our own model. We don't have enough data for that, but I could produce hundreds of hours of recorded calls where we have the same conversation. So how do we leverage that?
Well, and I think we want to get to the point where what would be awesome, and I think this is what you're saying, is take all the stuff we've already done and we've already have recordings and we already have all this information. You literally then could, if you had enough context, ask the AI model to tell you, hey, what are the top greatest things we've repeated to customers even? That would be really interesting. It's like, and what are the greatest concerns customers have had? What are the greatest, you could start to synthesize all this data, which could be super powerful.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that, the fine-tuning aspect of that. It's like, what does that look like? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
Is it actually integrating with the model somehow, or is it just a bolt-on? But somehow, they're getting that information, that tiny bit of data that you have, which is big for us.
Yes.
But not making it the center point of the conversation for the model.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's Helicone. I think you guys should join the thousands of developers and companies who have streamlined their LLM application infrastructure. So the easiest way to monitor your LLM applications at scale.
I'm getting the sense that it's just sort of a proxy.
It looks like it, actually.
So it just stands in front of Chat GPT and gobbles up all your data.
That's what it looks like.
And then
my guess would tell me based on this, probably uses the OpenAI API and sits in front of it, based on what you just said, Thad.
Maybe, yeah, it could be.
Because there's a little, that image shows underneath the little nav, that's GPT 3.5 Turbo 16X. I feel like the only way I would know that is if you obviously fed it a parameter. And so it's like that you have to feed that to the parameter within the OpenAI API.
Here you go. This is proxy versus async.
OpenAI proxy. There it is. Yeah. So it is a proxy to OpenAI API.
There you go. Right there.
The thing that and I haven't looked at it in forever, which means like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But
Which actually is forever.
I don't know, like 4 to 6 weeks, a couple months ago, I was thinking about this problem of context and wondering how OpenAI does it, or how these systems like GPT for All or Uba Gooba, and they use there's the chat / completions. There's the completions API, and then there's the chat, and the chat maintains the context, but you turn that around with every post, and that's why it's growing and growing and growing, and then you run out of space. And GPT 3.5, the API did that, but GPT-4 doesn't. And so they're maintaining context on the server, as far as I can tell, from like reverse engineering somewhat, because you don't have that. They still have that chat completions API.
Yeah.
But that's a different problem, or rather, that's a different approach to solving the context problem than what OpenAI is letting us as consumers use through their interface, because they're doing something new on the back end.
Have you done a
as far as I can tell.
search on GPT-4 context size? I'm curious if we did that real quick.
I haven't.
I wonder what it would say. That's.
I found that it remains the context is quite large in any case.
128K for GPT-4.
Okay,
That's pretty big.
but is the implication there that they're still using that chat completions, or are they doing something different? They're like keeping it on the server on your behalf. I feel like it's
not
that.
Sure. Yeah, very well.
Because if you put like a sniffer on there, right, a network sniffer, and you actually see what's being posted out of the Chat GPT client, I'm not seeing the history anymore on there. There's an identifier. Now they may have the history in the format that we all know and love for completions. They're just storing it at the server and referencing it by the ID.
What I'm curious
I'm totally
about is
into the weeds.
how many pages is 128,000 words? Because that's what it says the context size is. 128,000 tokens. Pages of content is that? Because that's really interesting. Because then like a 1 hour meeting is, if you transcribe it, ends up being 3 or 4 pages, 5 pages long, and it's like that. Then it could be like, how many meetings is that worth?
I can't do math.
I know I can't either.
It says about 240 pages at 400 words per page.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. That is a lot.
That's a decent amount. But if you're talking about all
200
of our
pages?
240 pages,
Yeah.
400 words a page.
It's a book.
That's a lot.
It's a decent amount. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. But
that's easily an hour-long conversation.
Mistral, as an example, has 8,000 tokens as a limit. So like these other models are much lower.
Yes.
Than ChatGPT.
Yeah.
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 Really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to look at Helicone.
Okay. Well, you can come back next week and be a world-leading expert. Because
We got to figure out how to fine-tune a model, too.
That's another.
That's-
sure. Yes. Yep.
Not just give it a bevy of information. It's like, how do you train it so it knows about it? It doesn't have to be in the context.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the local docs, because you were doing some of that stuff too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that local docs wasn't fine-tuning it. It's in there. But the only now it can refer to it, but it was limited by these tokens. It's like, well, we can do 6 samples at 128 characters.
Yeah.
And so if I've got a document or a conversation that's meandering, it's popping out and say, well, you're talking about fishing. And it's like, no, my opening line was a joke about fishing. The whole thing we were talking about was like Medicare.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, guys, I'm going to take us on a hard pivot.
Okay, hard pivot us.
We have just a few minutes left, but do you guys remember how Shazam started off?
Tamagotchi.
Well, this is
Shazam.
This is Shazam. First launched in 2002, was known as 2580 as the number for the short code that customers dialed from their mobile phone. So you would like call
I
this
did not
number,
know that.
and then you'd hold up to the phone, and it would listen to it. So in 2002, they were archiving, like, they had all these CDs, and they were listening to, just like archived all the data off of that, and built an algorithm in 2002 to match the song clip, right? And then they would text you back a hyperlink to listen to what or to see what the result is.
Fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that like doesn't like it doesn't add up in your head, right? Like this is what
It doesn't add up. I'm just like,
Or how
I
far
didn't-
things have come, you know, it's like in such a short time.
Yeah.
Really. You know, I mean, this looks so primitive, you know, and the concept of like using your phone and everything. And now with the smartphones and everything else. It's,
And think about how long that, like, basically that and a small evolution lasted. For you know, 2002 they're doing that, and then 2010 probably it gets onto a mobile app on a phone, maybe 2012. And for years it's like that. And now we make this huge jump. But you have a decade or 2 decades where it was just the kind of the same interaction. And now like every week things are changing so
It's
rapidly.
So rapid change. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought that was fun.
It is fun.
A little throwback.
Yeah.
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 I don't know if this clip shows, but yeah.
Yeah. Let it listen to it and then text you.
Yeah.
Innovation.
Oh, and you would buy the CD at Shazam.com. So that was their whole play there to make money.
Nice.
Then you would buy it.
when I saw
cool.
Shazam in my brain, I first thought Napster. Remember Napster?
Oh yeah. I do remember Napster. Yeah.
And now we have Spotify.
Yep. It was, and it was even before that was iTunes.
iTunes was not before Napster.
No. I mean Napster then iTunes.
Okay.
But we skipped to, you know.
Get your history straight.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I was talking to my wife about this the other day because she, when we first started dating, she made me a CD. And
A mixtape?
no, not a mixtape. CD, burned a CD of all different songs that she curated, right? And she, at the time, this was 2008, so she went on LimeWire or whatever it was, and we we're commiserating about the act of trying to go find all these songs. And then, like, a lot of times you just get these corrupt versions, or like you couldn't trust the file names of what they were. It wouldn't actually be the song. And we're thinking about how hard it was to create. And going back before then, it was even harder to put together a mixtape or a CD. And what an act of service and love that was. Right. And now today, just curating a playlist in your Spotify and saying, "Here you go." It's like there's nothing there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's so true. I remember the LimeWire days. When you said that, I was like, oh my gosh. Peer to peer, how crazy that and weird that was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We were just dodging the authority, dodging the man all the time whenever we would use the LimeWire.
The RAA or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. All right.
That's good.
We have to get out of here. Evan, we didn't go to you at all. I feel bad. What did you want to say?
I was just listening in. I didn't have much to say.
Did you use LimeWire when you were younger?
Yeah, so that whole conversation, that's way over my head. I mean, I know of them, but I never used any of them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the
You're so
Pirate
old.
Bay. You guys use the Pirate Bay a little?
Yeah.
A couple. Yeah.
Oh, man, we can talk about that.
I actually, me and my brother used to use it to get songs and to not buy it off of iTunes. And a so-called like government agent called our house one day. It's like, hey, you can't be using their pirating software anymore. And it freaked my mom out.
Yeah.
We got in some trouble there for sure. We're not
man.
going back on the Pirate Bay.
Yeah. I was pretty careful with not staying away from Pirate Bay, but I can't remember the name of this thing, but it was a BitTorrent client. So it was like the peer-to-peer BitTorrent, and we would use Views to maybe that's what it was called, VUZE. Had a little picture of a frog. Not VNC. We'd use VNC to play movies, but it was all about movies for us. We would download movies and watch them on, in the basement. I mean, we were seeing at some point, it's like, and I think the statute of limitations is far gone along here, so I don't have to worry about, I don't have to do this anymore, but we would watch 2-3 movies every weekend, and we were watching movies that weren't even released to CD yet because they would get shipped to China to get burned on the CDs for distribution in wherever, and it would leak and it would get on these BitTorrent sites. And then you would download it and you're watching stuff that hasn't even hit the US. And so we were just like, yeah. But there was one later on. This is I have 3 boys, and this is when they were in their mid-teens that we were doing a lot of this. But then they went off to school and came back, college, and come back, and it was over Thanksgiving. And we were always pretty careful about like not going after like a really huge title that had just been out, because they would be on the lookout for that. But this is when the Lord of the Rings had just kind of came out and got to be ready.
I know where this is
And
going.
my son, who shall go unnamed, he's like, oh, we'll just use BitTorrent and get Lord of the Rings, which we did. And we watched it, but like a week later, we got the nasty copyright notice from like the IP, the ISP, internet service provider, because somebody else contacted them and they said, okay, we know it came from here because of all the IP masking and everything. And they're like, this is strike 1. If you get 2 more strikes, we're coming after you.
Oh, man.
So then we just got NordVPN and got
Which leads us to today's sponsor of the podcast, NordVPN.
and started downloading from Toronto.
Oh, man. We only hire people of the highest ethical standards at City Innovations.
Oh, shoot.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out of here.
All right, guys.